Okay, so this is a rock that I took a picture of in the Natural History Museum in London. Its its label is the Sunday Stone, a calendar rock. It says this rock formed in a Tyneside coal mine during the 1800s. A white material, barium sulfate, settled out in a water trough, and during working shifts it was blackened by coal dust. And then it asked a question, sort of weirdly, how many working days were there in a week, and can you spot the holidays? So these were two questions that I guess the Natural History Museum thought maybe it's for kids. What can you read in this rock that has recorded the coal industry in the early 1800s? So you can actually see the lines of how many working days there were in a week. So it's recorded the work. And can you spot the holidays? And I'm guessing it seems to range, but there seems to be either 5 or 6 days in a working week. And then I think the holidays are where there's no white, where there's no black line, so it's just like pure rock. So it's like the rock takes a break from recording the sediments. So I like this idea of the rock being a record of this kind of work, and then it's also a record of pollution around the Industrial Revolution, which I think is really interesting, that it's kind of a witness to this sort of labour history and ecological history. But I also think when I drew it on baking paper, I thought it looks kind of like a score, like a score sheet, sheet music score sheet, which I don't really know what that means, but it makes me think that I want to fill in this score sheet, even though my musical literacy is very poor, almost none. So yeah. So as a kind of side note, this just made me think of when I was going through me and my auntie and my mum were going through my late grandmother's records, sort of notes, clippings, random crap that she just left in a suitcase and no one is going to look at except us. Don't know if we're going to look at them again, but kind of like not important, or like kind of an archive that doesn't really matter. So anyway, I was looking at this archive with my auntie and my mum, and one of the pages was a notation, or an attempted notation, of a song by my grandmother who didn't know how to write music.
Minor key.
What? You said she was in a choir? Maybe she had
I think she must have been in a
falsetto.
choir. See, I was at uni, but I mean I didn't have much to do with them. Fa fa mi.
Re re do re. Hang on, it says there what it is. It's Dvorak. Do re mi fa 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 so fa mi do re mi fa.
What is it? Dusky Trio. And then there's wedding music Indonesia. I don't know.
So she hasn't known
What?
she doesn't know how to write music.
No.
So she's had a go.
Back to rocks. So my grandfather wrote a couple of books. I mean, he's writing his second book about rocks. This is one of them, one of those books about rocks. So he did some important work. He's in Papua New Guinea. This is this place in the South Pacific. So a group of geologists, and he was a kind of colonial or in the colonial era. He was an Australian geologist who went over there and brought his family over there. So my mum was born in Papua New Guinea, and that's him, grandfather. Yeah, so he wrote these books about his discoveries. He found a lot of copper and gold. There's some really bad, sort of ended up being quite bad for the indigenous populations there, who he didn't really have a lot of respect for, but you know, he did to a point. He was very much a 20th century man. There's this picture of copper. There's a picture of gold. My lord, there is nothing to be afraid of. We are here at the approaches of the frozen sea, over which there was a huge and cruel combat between the Arimaspians and the Nephilipids at the onset of last winter. At that time, the words and cries of men and the women, the pounding of maces, the clank of the armour of men and horses, the whinnying of steeds, and all the remaining din of battle froze in the air. And now that the rigour of winter has passed and fine, calm, temperate weather returned, they melt and can be heard. By God, Panurge said, I believe it, but can we see one of them? I remember that at the foot of the mountain on which Moses received the Jewish law, the people actually saw the voices. Here, get hold of these, said Pantagruel. Here are some which have not yet thawed out. He then cast fistfuls of frozen words onto the deck, where they looked like sweets of many colours. He saw gullet words, gules, and words sinople, words azure, words ore, and words sable. After they had been warmed up a little in our hands, they melted like snow, and we actually heard them, but did not understand them, for they were in some barbarous tongue, save for a rather tubby one which, after Frere Jean had warmed it in his hands, made a sound such as chestnuts make when they are tossed unnicked onto the fire and go pop. It made us quite a start. In its time, said Frere Jean, that was a shot from a small cannon. Panurge asked Pantagruel to give him some more. Giving words is what lovers do, said Pantagruel. Sell me some then, said Panurge. Selling words is what lawyers do, replied Pantagruel. I would rather sell you silence more dearly, as Demosthenes did with his money quinsy. He nevertheless tossed 3 or 4 fistfuls onto the deck, and I saw many sharp words, and bloodthirsty words too, which the pilot said come home to roost with the man that uttered them and cut his throat. There were dreadful words, and others unpleasant to behold. When they had all melted together, we heard, hing, 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 hiss, hickory, dickory, dock, brediding, bredidack, fr, 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 boo, 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 ong, 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 ooh, ong, gog, magog. And who knows what other barbarous words. And the pilot said that they were vocables from battles joined and from horses neighing at the moment of the charge. And then we heard other ones, fat ones which made sounds when they melted, some of drum or fife, others of bugle and trumpet. Believe you me, they provided us with some excellent sport. I had hoped to preserve a few gullet words in oil, wrapping them up in very clean straw, as we do with snow and ice. But Pantagruel would not allow it, saying that it was madness to pickle something which is never lacking, and always to hand as our gullet words amongst all good and merry Pantagruelists.